Scientists' DNA tested a 7,200-year-old mummy. What they found changed everything. Hello, and welcome to Ancient History. Dear friends, archaeology has always held a unique fascination. Sometimes, all it takes is a single bone fragment, a clay pot, or a forgotten tomb buried beneath the earth to completely overturn what humanity once believed to be true. But every now and then, archaeologists uncover discoveries that go far beyond anyone's imagination, find so extraordinary that even the most experienced scientists are left astonished. To prove that, in today's journey, I'll take you through a series of mysterious archaeological discoveries, from strange Roman cemeteries in England and a 3,400-year-old brain surgery in Israel to the enigmatic Scythian women warriors, ancient settlements in Canada, and a remarkable jade treasure found along the Silk Road. Most astonishing of all is one discovery that forced scientists to rethink the history of an ancient people: the DNA analysis of a 7,200-year-old girl's mummy. The results not only revealed the young girl's unexpected origins, but also raised profound questions about prehistoric human migration and the civilizations that existed thousands of years ago. So, what is really hidden beneath the ground? What stories have these ancient remains been silently preserving for thousands of years? Let's begin our journey of discovery right now, because the deeper we explore each remarkable find, the more you'll realize that the history of humanity still holds countless secrets waiting to be uncovered. The 7,200-year-old female skeleton in Indonesia, revealing a lost ancient human group. If there is one thing that archaeology has always been able to do, it is amaze us with its ability to bring people who disappeared thousands of years ago back into human history. It does not always take massive cities or luxurious treasures to transform our understanding of the past. Sometimes, a single skeleton buried deep beneath the earth is enough to completely change the way we view the history of humanity. To prove what I have just said, let's travel to one of the most remarkable discoveries in Southeast Asia, where scientists uncovered the remains of a young woman who lived more than 7,200 years ago. The story begins at Liang Paningge Cave, also known as Bat Cave, located in the South Sulawesi region of Indonesia. This area is famous for its ancient caves, which have preserved traces of human communities dating back tens of thousands of years. During excavations at this site, archaeologists discovered something truly extraordinary. Beneath the layers of soil and rock inside the cave were the remains of a young woman. Through scientific analysis, researchers determined that she was approximately 17 to 18 years old when she died. But what immediately caught the attention of experts was the way she had been buried. Her body was placed in a fetal position, a burial style that appears in many ancient cultures. For some early communities, this position may have symbolized a return to the original state of human existence, representing a complete cycle of life. Humans are born from the earth and eventually return to the earth. Even more remarkably, part of the skeleton was covered by large stones. This suggests that the burial was performed intentionally and carefully, rather than simply being the result of natural processes that buried the body over time. Around the young woman's resting place, researchers also discovered several important artifacts, including stone tools, red ochre, and animal bones. Red ochre is an iron-rich mineral that many ancient human groups used to create pigments for rituals, body decoration, or activities with spiritual significance. The presence of red ochre alongside the skeleton suggests that this community may have practiced far more complex burial traditions than previously believed. However, what truly made the discovery at Liang Paningge a major turning point in the study of human history was hidden inside the young woman's DNA. When scientists conducted ancient DNA analysis, they discovered that she possessed an extremely rare genetic structure. Approximately half of her genome showed connections with indigenous populations from Australia, New Guinea, and several islands in the Western Pacific region. This discovery immediately raised a series of major questions. Who exactly did this young woman belong to? When did her ancestors arrive in Sulawesi? And why did their genetic traces almost completely disappear among modern populations today? According to researchers, the skeleton dates back approximately 7,200 to 7,300 years, based on radiocarbon dating methods. This proves that the group carrying this unique genetic heritage had already existed in Sulawesi long before farming communities appeared in the region. Experts believe that the young woman may have belonged to the Toalayan culture, an ancient hunter-gatherer group that lived in South Sulawesi between approximately 8,000 and 1,500 years ago. The Toalians are considered one of the most mysterious prehistoric communities in Southeast Asia. They did not build large cities, and they left behind no massive monuments. Most of what we know about them comes from small stone tools, hunting remains, and traces of their cave settlements. Their lives were closely connected with nature. They hunted animals, especially the Sulawesi wild pig, while also gathering food from the sea, including shellfish and other marine resources. However, the most fascinating mystery is that the Toalayan culture eventually disappeared. Today, the people living on Sulawesi Island are primarily descended from Neolithic populations that migrated to the region from Taiwan around 3,500 years ago. These groups brought farming techniques, animal domestication, and new ways of life, gradually transforming the societies that existed there before. So what happened to the Toalayan people? This remains a question without a complete answer. They may have integrated with newly arriving populations. They may also have experienced population decline over time due to environmental changes or social transformations. But regardless of the reason, their disappearance left behind a significant gap in the history of human populations in Southeast Asia. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that before this finding, scientists faced enormous challenges when studying ancient DNA in tropical regions. Hot and humid climates cause genetic material inside bones to break down rapidly. Because of this, recovering well-preserved DNA from a 7,200-year-old skeleton in Sulawesi is considered an important scientific achievement. 52 Roman skeletons found in a headless cemetery. Shock Britain. As you know, whenever archaeologists sink their first shovel into the ground, they usually hope to uncover a few pieces of ancient pottery, a handful of old coins, or traces of a long-lost structure. But sometimes, history has something far more extraordinary waiting beneath the surface, and this remarkable discovery in England is a perfect example. During what appeared to be a routine excavation in the village of Great Wellnatham, Suffolk, England, archaeologists uncovered one of the strangest Roman cemeteries ever discovered, dating back to around the 4th century AD. So, what made the cemetery so unusual? As the excavation team carefully removed layer after layer of soil, they began uncovering skeleton after skeleton lying close together. At first, everything seemed like a typical archaeological dig, but only minutes later, the entire team was left stunned when they realized that many of the skeletons were missing their heads. Even more astonishing, the skulls hadn't disappeared at all. They had been carefully placed beside the bodies, as if someone had deliberately performed a very specific and meaningful ritual. In total, archaeologists uncovered 52 skeletons. Yet only 17 individuals had been buried in the traditional Roman fashion. Most of the others had been laid to rest in highly unusual ways. Their heads had been separated from their bodies, or their skulls had been placed between their legs, beside their shoulders, or next to their hips. Andrew Peachy, one of the archaeologists involved in the project, admitted that the team was completely unprepared for such a discovery. According to him, before the excavation began, they had expected to find only a few traces of an ancient settlement. No one imagined that beneath the sandy soil lay an entire mysterious cemetery. What made the discovery even more astonishing was the fact that this site had once been part of a Roman settlement at Great Wellnatham. The settlement was established sometime between the mid and late 1st century AD and remained occupied for nearly 2,000 years. As you may know, the geology of Suffolk consists primarily of fine sand. Under those conditions, human bones normally deteriorate quite rapidly over time. Yet remarkably, most of the skeletons were preserved in surprisingly good condition. This allowed experts to identify the remains as belonging to men, women, and children of various ages. It was clear that these individuals had once lived in the settlement. Further analysis showed that most of the bodies had been carefully laid on their backs, with their arms neatly positioned according to standard Roman burial customs. In other words, these were not hurried or chaotic burials carried out after a battle. So why had their heads been removed? That question has puzzled archaeologists for years. Interestingly, The neck vertebrae showed no evidence of the heavy sword blows typically associated with executions. Instead, experts believe the heads were carefully removed after the individuals had already died. If that's true, then this was not a form of punishment. It was most likely a ritual. One theory that has attracted considerable attention suggests that these individuals belonged to a mysterious Roman religious cult in which the head was believed to be the resting place of the soul. According to that belief, separating the head from the body after death may have been a way of releasing the soul, so it could pass into the next world. Another possibility is that the people buried here were not native to Britain at all. They may have been slaves or migrants from distant parts of the Roman Empire who brought their own burial traditions with them. For now, however, these remain only theories. Even after thousands of years, no one can say with certainty which explanation is correct. Were the skulls placed beside the bodies simply part of a religious ritual? Or do they conceal a far darker story waiting to be uncovered? What do you think the answer is? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. A 1,600-year-old cemetery reveals the secret of two worlds colliding, the once-in-a-lifetime excavation in England. My friend, what do you think happens when two completely different cultures share the same final resting place? Did they live together peacefully, or is this the legacy of a turbulent chapter in history? After exploring the mystery of the Headless Cemetery in Suffolk, today's journey takes us to the town of Garforth in the city of Leeds, West Yorkshire, England. There, archaeologists uncovered a 1,600-year-old cemetery that has become one of the most significant discoveries for understanding the chaotic transition between the Roman Empire and the emerging Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in Britain. The excavation began as part of a routine archaeological survey ahead of a construction project. At first, experts expected to find only a few traces of an ancient settlement. But after removing the first layers of soil, burial pits began to emerge one after another. The deeper they dug, the more graves they uncovered, until the team realized they were standing in the middle of a vast cemetery that had remained hidden for more than 1,000 years. The final results astonished everyone. Archaeologists uncovered the remains of at least 62 individuals. The cemetery included men, women, and children of various ages. Every grave told a different story about the people who had once lived on this land during the final years of Roman Britain. Among the dozens of burials, however, one discovery left archaeologists nearly speechless. It was a lead coffin containing the remains of a woman believed to have belonged to the Roman aristocracy. As you may know, during the 4th century AD, lead was an extremely expensive material. Ordinary people almost never had the opportunity to be buried in a lead coffin. Such burials were typically reserved for individuals of exceptionally high social status or members of extremely wealthy families. Because of that, the moment the coffin was uncovered, work across the excavation site nearly came to a halt, as specialists carefully documented every detail. According to an official statement from the Leeds City Council, the cemetery was established during the late Roman period and continued to be used into the early Anglo-Saxon era. That means this site witnessed one of the greatest turning points in British history, when the power of the Roman Empire gradually faded and new kingdoms began to emerge. Normally, each community maintained its own burial ground and followed its own funeral traditions. But at Garforth, the evidence suggests that two different communities may have shared the same cemetery. That possibility is precisely what has archaeologists so excited. Excavation director David Hunter described the discovery as a once-in-a-lifetime find. According to him, if ongoing research confirms that Romans and Anglo-Saxons truly used the same cemetery during the same period, it would significantly reshape our current understanding of the transition between these two cultures. The lead coffin wasn't the site's only remarkable discovery. Many other graves also contained grave goods, including iron knives, pottery vessels, and a variety of personal belongings. These artifacts are helping scientists gradually reconstruct the lives of the ancient residents, from their occupations and daily customs to their beliefs about the afterlife. However, what caught experts' attention most was the fact that roughly half of the skeletons belonged to children or individuals who had not yet reached adulthood. That is an unusually high proportion compared to many other cemeteries from the same period. So what happened to them? Did they die during an epidemic? Or were they victims of extremely harsh living conditions? To find the answers, researchers are now examining the skeletons using a range of advanced scientific techniques, including radiocarbon dating, chemical analysis, and studies of pathological markers preserved in the bones. These methods can reveal their diets, overall health, geographic origins, and even diseases they may have suffered from during their lifetimes. Researchers hope that once all of the analyses are complete, they will gain a much clearer understanding of the social status, burial customs, diet, and relationship between the two communities that lived in West Yorkshire around 1,600 years ago. Until then, all we can do is wait. But whatever the final results may reveal, this discovery reminds us that sometimes a single cemetery is enough to rewrite an entire chapter of history. And Garforth is a perfect example of that, because every grave preserves not only the memory of an individual, but also another piece of the puzzle that helps us understand the moment Britain entered an entirely new era. It's truly a fascinating discovery, isn't it? 3,400-year-old skull surgery stuns the scientific community. When we think of brain surgery, most of us immediately picture modern operating rooms, state-of-the-art CT scanners, and surgeons with decades of specialized training. But what if I told you that more than 3,400 years ago, people were already performing surgical procedures on the human skull? It sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? Yet that is exactly what archaeologists discovered at Tel Megiddo in northern Israel, one of the most important Canaanite city-states of the Bronze Age. The discovery has captured the attention of not only archaeologists, but also medical experts, because it suggests that ancient civilizations may have understood the human body far better than we ever imagined. The story began when archaeologists excavated an ancient tomb at Tel Megiddo, a site that, as mentioned earlier, once served as the center of a powerful Canaanite city-state. There, they uncovered two skeletons buried side by side. After careful analysis, researchers determined that the two individuals were biological brothers who lived during the 15th century BC, approximately 3,400 years ago. At first glance, neither skeleton appeared particularly unusual, but as researchers carefully cleaned the older brother's skull, they immediately noticed something extraordinary. Right in the center of the frontal bone was a perfectly square opening, measuring about 1.2 inches across. It had been created by 4 remarkably straight and precise intersecting cuts. This was clearly not the result of a blow to the head or a battlefield injury. Experts quickly concluded that it was evidence of a trepanation, or skull surgery, one of the oldest known medical procedures in human history. Just imagine it. At that time, there was no anesthesia, no antibiotics, and certainly no modern surgical instruments. Yet someone possessed enough knowledge and skill to carefully remove a section of the skull without shattering it. How astonishing is that? According to the research, the older brother died sometime between the ages of 21 and 46, while the younger brother died in his late teens or early 20s. Both suffered from serious illnesses that had persisted for many years. A closer examination revealed extensive destruction and deformation in multiple bones throughout their bodies, indicating that they had endured a severe debilitating disease. The damage appeared in numerous areas of their skeletons, showing that the illness had affected them for a long period rather than just a few months. Even more remarkably, they survived for quite some time despite their condition. According to Rachel Kalisher, a researcher at Brown University in the United States, all available evidence suggests that the skull surgery was most likely a final attempt to save the older brother's life. In other words, the people who lived more than 3 millennia ago did not perform this operation at random. They had a clear purpose. Perhaps they believed opening the skull would relieve pressure on the brain after an injury. Or perhaps they were attempting to treat a disease that no one at the time fully understood. There is also another intriguing possibility. Some researchers believe the procedure may have carried a spiritual meaning as well. In many ancient cultures, illness was believed to be caused by evil spirits or supernatural forces. Creating an opening in the skull may therefore have been viewed as a way to release those harmful forces from the patient's body. By studying the cut marks on the skull, researchers discovered that the surgeon did not drill a circular hole, as seen in many other documented cases of trepanation around the world. Instead, the individual used a sharp tool to make 4 straight cuts, forming a square before carefully lifting out the piece of bone in the center. It was an incredibly sophisticated technique that required remarkable precision, skill, and experience. The 2 brothers were also buried with finely crafted pottery and high-quality food offerings, grave goods typically found only in the tombs of people with elevated social status. This suggests they may have belonged to a wealthy or influential family within Canaanite society. The skeletons of Scythian women warriors, buried with a 2,400-year-old golden headdress, shock Russian archaeologists. Dear friends, for centuries, whenever people imagined the horse-riding warriors who once dominated the vast Eurasian steppes, they almost always pictured fearless men armed with bows, arrows, and spears. But modern archaeology is gradually revealing a very different reality. Some women were far more than homemakers or caregivers. They carried weapons onto the battlefield and fought alongside men as equals. That is exactly what archaeologists recently discovered at the Davitsa 5 cemetery in southwestern Russia. There, archaeologists from the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences excavated an extraordinary Scythian burial chamber dating back approximately 2,400 years to the Iron Age. Inside the tomb, they uncovered 4 remarkably well-preserved skeletons. All of them were female, 3 adult women and 1 young girl between 12 and 13 years old. So what brought together 4 women from different generations to be buried in the same large tomb? To this day, scientists still don't know. There is no clear evidence that they died in the same battle or as the result of a single catastrophic event. It remains one of the greatest mysteries surrounding this discovery. According to expedition leader Valery Gulyayev, this is the first time archaeologists have uncovered a Scythian burial chamber containing women of different ages laid to rest together in the same burial space. That alone makes this discovery truly unique. Fully appreciate the significance of this excavation, we first need to understand who the Scythians were. The Scythians were a confederation of nomadic tribes that once inhabited the immense grasslands stretching from southern Siberia across Central Asia to the Black Sea region. Between the 8th and 3rd centuries BC, they were regarded as some of the most formidable mounted warriors of the ancient world. They became famous for their incredible skill at shooting arrows from horseback, their remarkable mobility, and military tactics that even the greatest empires treated with caution. Yet the discovery at Davitsa 5 reveals an entirely different side of Scythian society. After examining the skeletons, researchers determined that the oldest woman died between the ages of 45 and 50. That may not sound particularly remarkable today, but more than 2,000 years ago, reaching that age was exceptionally rare. According to researchers, the average life expectancy among the Scythians was only about 30 to 35 years. Furthermore, because they were constantly engaged in warfare and lived a nomadic lifestyle across the harsh steppes, their mortality rate was significantly higher than that of many other Iron Age cultures. The fact that this woman lived to nearly 50 strongly suggests that she may have been an extraordinary figure within her community, someone of considerable status or authority. But the greatest surprise was still to come. Right beside the remains of the oldest woman, archaeologists discovered an exquisitely decorated ceremonial headdress. After analyzing its metal composition, researchers determined that it was made of 65 to 70% gold, combined with copper, silver, and a small amount of iron. That is an exceptionally high gold content compared with previously discovered Scythian artifacts. Even more exciting, most similar ceremonial headdresses found in the past had deteriorated or become badly deformed after spending thousands of years underground. The headdress from Davitsa 5, however, retained much of its original decorative detail, giving specialists a rare opportunity to study Scythian metalworking techniques in far greater depth. Of course, the treasures inside the burial chamber did not end there. During the excavation, the research team also uncovered an iron hook, fragments of horse saddles, pottery vessels, iron knives, animal bones, and most notably, more than 30 arrowheads. The presence of such a large collection of weapons has led many archaeologists to believe that these women were not only influential members of their tribe, but may also have fought in battle themselves. That theory becomes even more convincing in light of the work of historian Adrian Mayor of Stanford University, who has pointed out that roughly 1/3 of the excavated Scythian women were buried with weapons, and many of their skeletons bear injuries consistent with combat. This evidence has become one of the strongest arguments supporting the idea that the legendary Amazons of Greek mythology may have been inspired by real Scythian women warriors. As the excavation continued, archaeologists made yet another intriguing discovery. They uncovered a narrow tunnel on the northern side of the burial chamber. After analyzing the surrounding soil layers, researchers concluded that it was most likely dug by grave robbers approximately 100 to 200 years after the tomb was originally constructed. Fortunately, those ancient thieves appear to have failed to reach the main burial chamber. As a result, most of the valuable artifacts remained exactly where they had been placed more than 2,000 years ago, allowing scientists to study the site in remarkable detail. According to experts, the discovery at Devitsa 5 in southwestern Russia is far more than simply another burial chamber added to the world's archaeological record. More importantly, it is reshaping the way we understand the role of women in ancient societies. They were not always figures who remained behind the front lines. In many cases, they were warriors, leaders, and individuals who held positions of great authority within their communities. Perhaps, after resting silently beneath the earth for more than 2,000 years, these four Scythian women are still telling us the story of a powerful civilization, one in which courage was never determined by gender. It truly reminds us just how fascinating the ancient world can be, doesn't it? 14,000-year-old settlement in Canada is rewriting the history of North America. The Heiltsuk people's ancient legend turns out to be true. Our destination this time is Triquet Island in British Columbia, Canada, where researchers from the Canadian Museum of History worked alongside members of the indigenous Heiltsuk Nation on a major archaeological investigation. At first, their goal was simply to test oral traditions that the Heiltsuk people had passed down through countless generations. According to those stories, their ancestors had lived along this coastline since the distant past, when massive glaciers still covered much of North America. To many people, these accounts sounded like nothing more than ancient legends, but archaeologists know that oral traditions can preserve fragments of historical truth, as long as there is enough evidence to test them. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. As researchers carefully removed layer after layer of ancient soil, they began uncovering evidence of a settlement dating back approximately 14,000 years. That places the site near the end of the last ice age, when enormous ice sheets still dominated much of North America. This means that humans were living along Canada's Pacific coast much earlier than many scientists had previously believed. Unlike ancient cities filled with towering temples or massive stone walls, the settlement on Triquet Island was remarkably simple. Researchers found only the remains of modest shelters built from natural materials to protect their occupants from the harsh, freezing climate. Yet that very simplicity is what gives the site such extraordinary archaeological importance. It proves that people did not merely pass through this area for a short time, they actually lived here and successfully adapted to the unforgiving environment of the Ice Age. As the excavation continued, the research team uncovered even more fascinating artifacts. They found charred animal bones and the remains of ancient hearths, clear evidence that the people living here regularly cooked food and kept fires burning to stay warm. They also discovered a variety of tools used for harvesting marine resources, including fishhooks, spears, and other carefully crafted implements. Perhaps most remarkable of all was a handheld stone drill, believed to have been used to start fires by creating friction against wood. These artifacts may seem small, but they tell us an incredible amount about the lives of people who lived here tens of thousands of years ago. They were not aimless wanderers. They knew how to choose suitable places to live, take advantage of the ocean's abundant food resources, manufacture specialized hunting tools, and maintain fire, the key to survival in an unforgiving climate. To determine the settlement's true age, researchers used radiocarbon dating on the charred organic materials recovered from the site. The results thrilled the entire research team. Every analysis pointed to the same conclusion. The settlement existed approximately 14,000 years ago, during the final stages of the last ice age. This is an especially significant milestone. For many years, scientists believed that most of North America was still divided by enormous ice sheets during that period, making long-term human settlement extremely difficult. Yet the discovery on Triquet Island demonstrates that, at least along the Pacific coast, human communities had already adapted to the natural environment and established stable lives. Even more importantly, the discovery confirms something the Heiltsuk people have preserved through their oral traditions for thousands of years. Their stories were not merely myths, they reflected historical memories that had been passed from generation to generation, long before the invention of writing. This discovery also serves as powerful evidence that the traditional knowledge preserved by indigenous communities can sometimes provide the key that helps modern science uncover the truth. Even so, archaeologists acknowledge that this is only the beginning. Our scientific understanding of Ice Age coastal settlements remains extremely limited. Many other locations along Canada's western coastline have yet to be thoroughly excavated, and they may still conceal evidence that is even older. Every artifact recovered from Tree Island is like another small piece of a massive puzzle, helping us reconstruct the story of humanity's journey into North America. Perhaps the history of this continent did not begin the way we learned in our textbooks. Perhaps the first people arrived earlier, were more resourceful, and were far more resilient than we have ever imagined. And perhaps beneath layers of earth that have never been excavated, even older traces of human history are still waiting to be discovered. Anything is possible. What do you think? 27 ancient tombs along the Silk Road containing jade-covered skeletons reveal the luxurious secrets of China's Han Dynasty. Did you know that in ancient times, jade was far more than just a precious stone? To the ancient Chinese, it symbolized power, purity, and the promise of immortality. That's why whenever archaeologists uncover an artifact made of jade, they know it may tell the story of nobles or even royalty. But what would you think if an entire ancient cemetery were filled with priceless treasures, and the dead had been dressed in garments woven from thousands of pieces of jade? It almost sounds impossible, doesn't it? Yet that is exactly what happened in Xi'an, Shanxi Province, China, the historic starting point of the famous Silk Road. Buried deep beneath the ground, archaeologists from the Xi'an Institute of Cultural Heritage and Archaeology, working alongside international experts, uncovered 27 ancient tombs dating back approximately 2,000 years to the Han Dynasty. Inside the tombs, an astonishing collection of grave goods gradually came to light, from exquisitely crafted pottery and bronze artifacts to precious jewelry and countless other relics that had remained remarkably well preserved for 2 millennia. Yet even those extraordinary discoveries were not what astonished the excavation team the most. Among the 27 tombs, 4 stood out because of their exceptional size. When the final layers of soil were carefully removed, archaeologists discovered that the occupants of these tombs had not been wrapped in ordinary silk. Instead, they had been covered with green burial garments painstakingly assembled from approximately 2,200 pieces of jade, each one carefully joined to the next with extraordinary precision. Just imagine what it took to create such a garment in ancient times. Craftsmen first had to grind every individual piece of jade until they were nearly identical in size. Then each piece had to be drilled with tiny holes before being connected with extremely fine metal wires. It was an astonishing feat of craftsmanship that demanded master-level skill and consumed an enormous amount of valuable resources. The sheer quantity of jade alone makes it clear that the owners of these tombs must have occupied the highest levels of Han society. According to ancient Chinese beliefs, jade represented far more than wealth and prestige. People also believed it could preserve the body after death, slow the process of decomposition, and help the soul enter the next world intact. That belief led members of the aristocracy to spend enormous fortunes creating these remarkable jade burial suits for themselves. The jade garments were not the only remarkable discoveries. Archaeologists also uncovered numerous small ceramic figurines placed beside the deceased. At first glance, they may appear to be nothing more than decorative objects. To researchers, however, each figurine is an invaluable historical record. By studying their hairstyles, clothing, posture, and craftsmanship, experts can better understand the identity of the tomb's owner and gain new insights into everyday life during the Han Dynasty. That is why these small figurines are preserved and studied just as carefully as artifacts made of gold or jade. What makes this discovery even more significant is the cemetery's location. Xi'an, known in ancient times as Chang'an, served as the capital of several Chinese dynasties and was also the eastern starting point of the Silk Road. From this city, merchants carried silk, tea, and porcelain across thousands of miles, traveling through the Taklamakan Desert, crossing the Pamir Mountains, passing through present-day Afghanistan and the Levant before eventually reaching the shores of the Mediterranean. In return, gold, silver, wool, gemstones, and many other valuable goods from the West flowed back into China along the same route. The Silk Road was far more than a network for transporting merchandise. It was also a highway for the exchange of cultures, scientific knowledge, religions, and ideas among the greatest civilizations of the ancient world. That is why the discovery of a major cemetery at the very beginning of this historic trade route is of such extraordinary importance. Researchers believe the individuals buried here may have been aristocrats, government officials, or members of wealthy families closely connected to Han Dynasty commerce. Even so, archaeologists emphasize that the excavation is still in its early stages. Most of the cemetery has yet to be uncovered. That means many more tombs and countless priceless artifacts may still lie hidden beneath the earth. Researchers hope future excavations will provide a clearer understanding of Han Dynasty burial customs, social hierarchy, and the lives of the aristocracy more than 2,000 years ago. This is not the first time archaeologists have discovered jade burial suits in China. A similar suit was previously unearthed at the Shishan tomb in Yongqing, Henan province. However, the discovery of multiple large-scale tombs together in Xi'an once again demonstrates both the extraordinary prosperity of the Han civilization and its profound belief in the afterlife. More than 2,000 years later, those pieces of jade still shimmer beneath the lights of the excavation laboratory, as though time itself had never touched them. Each fragment reflects more than light. It reflects the glory of the Silk Road itself, a route that once connected east and west and forever changed the course of countless civilizations. 59. 400-year-old grenades found beneath the Great Wall reveal a Ming Dynasty weapon that astonished archaeologists. When people think of the Great Wall of China, most of us picture a magnificent military fortification winding across mountain ranges, built to defend against invasions from the north. But few realize that beneath its bricks and the layers of earth that have covered it for centuries, the Great Wall still conceals military secrets that have never before been uncovered. And so, the final stop on today's journey takes us to the bottling section of the Great Wall, located about 50 miles northwest of Beijing, China. It was here, during research on the Ming Dynasty's defensive system, that archaeologists uncovered a hidden weapons cache dating back approximately 400 years, offering an entirely new perspective on the military technology of one of the most powerful dynasties in Chinese history. The excavation took place inside the Great Wall, in an area that had long been believed to contain nothing more than the foundations of several old military structures. However, as the team dug deeper, they unexpectedly uncovered the remains of an ancient storage building. At first, they noticed only several spherical stones scattered throughout the soil, but the farther they excavated, the more of these stone objects appeared. Finally, after completely clearing the site, experts determined that the structure contained 59 stone grenades. Each one had been carefully crafted with a hole drilled through its center, just large enough to be packed with gunpowder before being sealed. At first glance, their design appears remarkably simple, yet that simplicity was actually their greatest advantage. According to researchers, soldiers only needed to fill the stone shells with gunpowder, light the fuse, and throw them from the top of the Great Wall. When the grenades exploded, fragments of stone would fly in every direction, combining the force of the blast with deadly shrapnel capable of inflicting serious damage on enemy troops. In many ways, these were among the earliest forms of hand grenades in military history. What makes these weapons especially interesting is how perfectly they match the geography of the Great Wall. Imagine an enemy army advancing toward the base of the fortification. From walls rising dozens of feet above the ground, Ming soldiers could simply hurl grenade after grenade onto the attackers below. Not only would the explosions create powerful shockwaves, but the high-speed stone fragments would also throw enemy formations into complete chaos. Despite their relatively simple construction, these weapons were extremely effective defensive tools. According to archaeologists, the newly discovered grenades closely resemble examples previously unearthed at other military sites. That suggests they were not experimental weapons. Instead, they were likely standard military equipment used by the soldiers stationed along the Great Wall during the Ming Dynasty, which ruled China from 1368 to 1644. The discovery also demonstrates that the Ming military developed a highly organized defensive system, one in which storing weapons at strategically important locations played a vital role. Historical records show that gunpowder was invented in China around the 9th century. By the Ming Dynasty, gunpowder weapon technology had advanced significantly. In addition to stone grenades, the military employed a wide variety of other weapons with colorful names such as flying rat, fire brick, and iron-spiked fireball. Although these names may sound simple, they represented an entire arsenal of weapons that helped transform the way wars were fought across East Asia. Shang Heng, a researcher at the Beijing Institute of Archaeology, explained that this is the first time experts have discovered a weapons warehouse located inside the Great Wall itself. According to him, the discovery is especially significant because it provides valuable insight into how the Ming military organized its logistics and positioned weapons along a defensive line stretching thousands of miles. The discoveries did not stop there. Near the weapons storage building, archaeologists also uncovered the remains of a stone fortress, several watchtowers, fire pits, cooking stoves, shovels, and numerous everyday objects. These artifacts show that the soldiers were not stationed here for only brief periods. They lived, cooked, rested, and stood guard along this defensive line throughout the year. As a result, archaeologists are now able to paint a much clearer picture of the daily lives of the soldiers who devoted their youth to defending the empire's northern frontier. Perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of this discovery is that Ming Dynasty gunpowder formulas were not designed merely to produce fire. According to experts, the primary goal was to maximize explosive power, allowing the grenades to inflict greater damage when detonating within enemy formations. It is yet another reminder that the weapon-making technology developed in China centuries ago was far more advanced than many people have ever imagined. Dear friends, throughout today's journey, we've traveled across many different corners of the world together. From the skeleton of a young girl in Indonesia to the Headless Cemetery in Suffolk, England, where Roman skeletons still preserve the mystery of their unusual burial rituals. Then we journeyed to the 1,600-year-old cemetery in Garforth, West Yorkshire, England, a site that captures the remarkable transition between Roman Britain and the Anglo-Saxon era. From there, we continued to Tel Megiddo in northern Israel, where evidence of a 3,400-year-old skull surgery left even modern medical experts in awe. We also met the Scythian women warriors at Davitsa 5 in southwestern Russia, explored a 14,000-year-old settlement on Trike Island in Canada, admired magnificent jade burial suits inside 2,000-year-old tombs in Xi'an, China, and finally uncovered a hidden cache of Ming Dynasty stone grenades beneath the Great Wall of China. Each discovery came from a different time, a different place, and a different civilization. Yet they all share one powerful message. History still holds countless secrets buried beneath the earth. Some stories that were once dismissed as legends have ultimately been proven true through archaeology. Others, despite years of research, still remain unsolved mysteries. And perhaps that's exactly what makes archaeology one of the most fascinating fields in the world. Every shovel striking the ground and every layer of soil carefully uncovered has the potential to reveal an entirely new chapter in the story of humanity. Which discovery impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy incredible archaeological discoveries and unexpected historical mysteries like these, don't forget to leave a like and share this video with your fellow history and archaeology enthusiasts. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming journeys, where we'll continue uncovering the ancient secrets that time has yet to fully reveal. Thank you so much for joining us on today's adventure. We'll see you again in the next video for another exciting journey into the mysteries of ancient history.